Hello and welcome to ARR's Lockdown Ask Me Anything session with Julia Quinn. My name is Laura Boone and I'm looking forward to a really fun session. We have some fabulous questions. Welcome, Julia.
And welcome to Charlotte's cat poking in on the side.
Have you got a cat there, Charlotte? Oh, yeah, she is. Oh. She's so cute.
Sorry, I was ignoring the cat. It's such a Zoom thing now.
That the cat comes in and yeah. I have a couple of dogs and they're more inclined to bark in disgust that I'm not taking them out for a walk. I'll just give anyone who's new to romance, particularly historical romance, a quick overview of Julia's career, and then we can get into our questions. Julia is a best-selling historical romance writer and the creator of the Bridgerton family, soon to appear on screens everywhere, courtesy of Shondaland and Netflix. She has sold over 10 million copies of her books in the US alone. Her novels have been translated into 32 languages, and she has appeared on the New York Times bestseller list at least 19 times. Her books are noted for their humor and sharp, witty dialogue. Her first two novels were the subject of a bidding war, and she has subsequently won 3 Rita Awards and been featured in a number of prominent publications, including Time magazine. Her most recent release is First Comes Scandal. Julia has a great website, and you can find out heaps more about her, and also find links to her social media pages like Instagram at https://juliaquinn.com. We will ask Charlotte to ask her questions first, but just before she does that, Julia, I have to tell you that Charlotte has just confided in me that she signed her very first book contract yesterday.
Yay!
And
congratulations!
It's for a Regency romance, so that's very exciting news.
Oh, that's wonderful. Who was the publisher?
It's Escape, so Harlequin, Australia.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh,
thank you.
I'm so proud of you. I don't even know you. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
That's terrific.
I have a couple of questions for you, and the first one, of course, is going to be about the Netflix series.
I'll just say now, if I can answer it, I will. But
I just want to know if you were allowed to visit the set and if you got to meet the actors.
Oh, that I went to the set twice, and actually I posted some pictures on both my Facebook page and my Instagram page. You can see some. There's a very strict embargo on information, so I'm not allowed to post anything that shows a character in costume or the set. But I was able to show a few things that were really fun. But I went twice. The first time I went in September, they were filming on location. Sorry about that. So normally in most productions, they sort of go back and forth between location work and set work, but because it took them longer to get the set built than they expected for this season, I mean, hopefully there'll be more seasons. Nothing's done, but for the season that they did all the location work first, and then after they finished that, they did all the set work. So when I visited in September, I got to visit 2 different shooting locations. One was a country house not too far outside London, and the other was in Bath. They were filming a number of exterior scenes. And Bath is a great place to do that because it's much easier to shut down parts of Bath than to shut down parts of London. So that was really great, and I got to meet some of the actors and actresses then. Kind of my favorite moment was when I met Luke Newton, who plays Colin. At the time, I was writing First Comes Scandal, and in that book, Colin appears as a baby. And you have to understand, I'm not the most visual author, so I don't have these distinct ideas of what my characters look like. I know there are many authors who do it differently, but I don't. And so that's a little different now because now I have these actors in my head. So now all of a sudden I do have faces for everybody now. But you know, their books are already written, right? So it doesn't make a difference, except now I have baby Colin. And so I said to him, I was like, I need a baby picture of you. And so he just turned to me and goes, I'll get in touch with my mom. And that night he texted me 2 baby pictures. And so I did actually have baby Colin in my head when I was writing it. I had, baby Luke, and I was able to share one of his photos. I think it's on my Instagram account now, but it'll be on my website soon. So that was really fun. And then went to the set again in January, and that was different because I went to the set that they built in a huge soundstage, and that was unbelievable because, in the first one, it was amazing just to see everything, but, they hadn't created a whole new world with it. They were using what was there. Going back in January and seeing this incredible set that they had built and created was unbelievable. I think they took a little video of me seeing it for the first time. They made me put my hands over my face, and then I took it off and I'm looking around, and I think the whole time it's just like, it's the scale. I don't even know how to describe it to you. It was just amazing. They've just created, yeah. You can see, I don't have words, and I make words up for a living. So the fact that I can't even express it, and you guys are just going to be amazed at the sets and the costumes, and it's just so incredibly gorgeous and thoughtfully done. And yeah, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It definitely sounds like a dream come true.
Oh yeah. Well, and not even just a dream come. I didn't even have that dream because somebody was going to make a TV show out of my books. I tell people, like, I'm not being cute when I say I never thought it would happen to me. I never thought it would happen to anyone. I mean, it doesn't happen or didn't happen to romance authors. So it's unbelievable. And the craziest part is, it's not seeing your characters come to life. I mean, that's crazy. Don't get me wrong. But the craziest part for me is how many people are now involved. Because at one point I was the only person working on this. I mean, it belongs to readers now too, but in terms of the creative part of it, the creating, it was just me and to some degree my editor. And now there are hundreds of people working on this project, and they're all closer to it than I am. I mean, all the filming is in the UK. I live in Seattle. I'm far away, and these people have been working closely together for months, and they've formed a little family, both the cast and the crew and the writers and the directors, and they have this tight-knit little family, and I'm actually not really a part of it. And so that's a little weird, but kind of cool.
Kind of going on from what you said about how you created the world, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your writing process, like how you actually wrote the book.
Well, I can't remember so much specifically about those books, but in general, I write a reasonably detailed synopsis before I get started. And that's in part because contractually I have to, and in part because it does help me. And so I'll usually write something that's maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 single space pages. But the beginning of it's all about the characters. It's not this happens, that happens, the other thing happens. It's really like, this is one of the characters, and this is everything that's happened to her before we get going. Sorry, I got something in my throat. And because it's really important for me to understand who these characters are and who they were before page 1, because we're all the sum of our experiences. So I might come up with things that happen to them that I put in my outline or my synopsis, whatever you want to call it, that never appear in the book. But because I know it, I think it helps me to make a more fully realized character. It'll come out in other ways. And so I spend a bit of time on that, and then the setup, and then I kind of write the plot, which I stick to for the most part, but it goes off also at times. And, and it's parts of the outline might be so specific where I actually have pieces of dialogue in there because they'll just come to me while I'm doing the outline and I don't want to forget them. And then they're part, I'll literally write things happen, because I don't know what things are going to happen, but and I just haven't thought of it yet. and then I write the book mostly, not always. Sometimes I'll just go ahead and you know, if there's another scene in the future that I have a clearer idea, I might do that. I've often found the places that trip me up the most are sometimes if I'm here and I can't transition to here. If I do this one, then I can go back. If that makes any sense. So I do mostly chronologically, but I also edit as I go along, so that I'm like going over what I did right before. Then I'll get a little bit into it and I'll suddenly realize, you know, I'm in chapter 10 and I can't remember a thing that happened in chapter 2. So I'll go way back to the beginning and think, but I'm pretty much done because I've been editing it so many times along.
Wow, that's no question. Combination of the first is for your books at Avon, like, because you would be able to see your characters, but
I don't really have a lot to do with that. Authors have a lot less to do with their covers than I've worked with them for long enough, and I power. And so Randall, I said, let's put Edinburgh Castle behind it, and I've never done that before. But I don't have a whole lot of the process.
okay. All right. Well, that's all my questions. Thank
you
for talking to you.
Do you have some more? Or? Oh, she's gone. Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Sorry, I have a whole heap of questions for you, Julie.
Okay. I thought you did. You muted for a moment there.
Yeah, my dog started barking frantically in the background, and I thought we just keep them quiet. Now I have a question from Cassandra Samuels, who wants to know if you felt additional pressure when writing your current work in process because of the you know, all the publicity around the Bridgerton series.
I think a little, not a huge, a little, and I suspect it will grow. You know, whatever I'm working on now is actually, I'll be working on it or finishing up around the time the show comes out. I don't have a date yet, but just judging approximately when. So yeah, I think so. I think there are going to be a lot more eyes on me in a different kind of way, and it just kind of, I don't really know what's coming. We'll see. I just know it's going to be a little different.
And has that also been impacted by these strange times we're living in? With the threat of the virus, I know it affects your family because your husband is a doctor and works in infectious disease. So all those things kind of sort of making your current book a really different experience from previous ones?
Well, you mean what I'm writing or the book that just came out?
The one you're writing at the moment, or planning to write.
Started. So I guess that's the biggest thing that I've been putting off starting. So I guess that, yeah, a little bit. We'll see. I don't know how it will affect. I mean, I usually do spend, like, I write kind of in 3 places. I write at home to some degree, and I also write at my local Starbucks where I'm a regular, and I have friends, and I sit in the same place at the counter. And then I also will go away by myself several times per year, usually to Mexico, because it's a place we go to. And, you know, it's funny, I get down there and they're saying, you know, why are you working in Mexico? And I said, well, I have to work somewhere. I might as well do it here where it's gorgeous and people bring me margaritas and, you know, I can have guacamole and it's so nice. Yeah. And so, but, you know, I don't know whether that type of travel will be possible, and I can't sit in my Starbucks now. I mean, I can get takeout drinks, but I can't sit where I usually sit and be there. And so I'm going to need to learn to do more of my writing in different places. And so we'll see how it goes.
I have a question from Malvina, who says that, she's always been enchanted by your books, and she still laughs every time she thinks about the Mallet of Death from way back. And she wants to know how you thought up the Mallet of Death. So her auntie was an international croquet player and referee. And every time she talked about it, Malvina remembers the scenes from the book.
So we used to, I don't remember exactly coming up with the Mallet of Death, but the reason I do remember a bit about how the whole croquet scene came up. What was happening was I was writing that book, and it's a sort of enemies to lovers trope. And I wrote these two characters, and they kind of hate each other. And then eventually the heroine's like, actually, he's not so bad. He's, but what happened was I get to this point and I'm like, I feel like this is happening too soon in the book. And it's not so much that I look and I'm like, oh, I'm on page, 125, this is too soon. But you're also like, I'm on page 125, this is too soon. And the thing is, if it's happening, if you've written enough novels where you sort of know the arc of a romance, what you know about how much room you have to get through this arc, if something's happening too soon, you're like, it could be that my story is just not big enough for full romance, or it could be that I missed something. And I realized, I was like, I don't feel like I did enough to show why she would suddenly realize he's not such a terrible person. I realized that I just didn't think her turnaround was believable. So I started thinking about what would convince her he's not so bad. Like what could he do? And I realized she needed to see him interacting with his family and needed to see the love there, and how, even though it's them like basically torturing each other and being crazy competitive and flinging, barbs, and I mean, they're all in good fun, that it's really clearly a sort of boisterous, loving family. And so that's how I ended up going back and putting in this scene, which turned out to be one of the most popular scenes I've ever written. That was actually something I went back and inserted. And I think the reason it ended up being croquet is when I grew up, we used to visit my grandparents' house a lot, and they had what to me at the time was an enormous backyard. I grew up in a little condo, so I didn't have a backyard. I have been back. It wasn't as big as I remembered, but it was still pretty big. And their next door neighbor, who we adored and we called her Aunt Vi, she had a croquet set, and we were allowed to just go over to her shed and take it out. We didn't have to ask first. And we would always take it out and set it up in my grandparents' backyard. And it was my older sister and me. And we never set up the wickets the way you were supposed to set them up. We would always try to do these really hard things. So I just remember we'd always set up a wicket like over a tree root that would make it really hard, so that just kind of, that level of competition kind of ended up growing into that. But what's actually really funny about the Mallet of Death is that when you translate it into Portuguese, at least Brazilian Portuguese, which my books are pretty popular in Brazil, the word for mallet is actually taco, like what we eat, a taco. So it ends up being like Taco del Muerte or something. So I'm like, Taco of Death. I love it so much.
Well, that is funny. I have another question here.
Oh, I have one more thing too. Sorry. One more thing on that. So we are not confirmed for season 2 of Bridgerton on Netflix, although I'm optimistic, but I have been told that if we have a season 2, there will be season 1 like a huge success, so we get renewed so we can all get the croquet game.
Yes,
that's my plea to you.
Yes, we'll all
tell everybody
everybody, so that we can get to see the Mallet of Death in action. I agree.
Exactly. There is no Mallet of Death in season 1. I can share with you. It's not there, but if we have a season 2, I think it will be.
Fantastic. I have a question from Monique McDonald here, who says that you're great on social media, especially with Instagram Lives. And what do you think are the greatest opportunities for authors to connect with readers in the digital age? Do you still prefer face-to-face events, or do you think there are lots of online opportunities?
Well, the nice thing about online is that you can reach people on a more global scale, which I can't do. I wish I could. I mean, I've been to Australia once. I did a tour there, which was wonderful, and I'd love to do it again, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. So it is nice to do social media. The Instagram lives kind of came about. That was a new thing with quarantine. I just thought it might be something different I could do. I'm not sure how long. Right now I'm doing 2 a week, and I'm not sure I'm going to continue to do that many. It's a lot of, I'm like, God, I have to brush my hair. But that's been really nice during quarantine too, because it's so nice to talk to another person who doesn't live in your household. Gosh, I'm not even sure what the original question was. I mean, I think it's a combination of both are really great. I mean, nothing can substitute for actually meeting someone in person and seeing them and having a picture taken or whatever, but it is nice to be able to interact with readers directly to some degree. And I don't do Twitter. I've never been able to get the hang of it, but I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, and I feel like they complement each other nicely. Facebook allows me to share a wider variety of things. It's just easier to share things there. And so that's where I'll post. I'll find really interesting articles. I do book recommendations. Lots of little like grammar jokes or, cartoons and stuff. So that's there. And then Instagram, different photos and whatnot. And it's been nice. I'll regram things. I see really cool bookstagrammers do their arty shots, which I'll never do, but I'll share them. And also just the lives have been pretty easy and kind of nice to do. So I like the combination of those two, what the different things they allow. And, for people who do want to keep up with me, I encourage them to follow both, because I don't post the same things on both at all.
And just following up on something you mentioned there, I did have a question about your last trip to Australia. Is there anything you remember that doesn't have to do with books that was particularly memorable or disastrous or fun?
So we went, because I'm the vacation planner in the family, and when we didn't end up going to, is it Uluru? Is it pronounce it? Uluru. The former Ayers Rock. I think that it just takes so long to get there and whatever. And instead, I said, look, we've got time to do sort of one thing outside. We were going to the Great Barrier Reef and the Daintree, and we wanted to see Sydney. I went to Melbourne on my tour. The family didn't go. I really wanted to go to Kangaroo Island, and that turned out, I don't think very many Americans go. It's not like as well known. And that was just unbelievable. It was just so fabulous. We stayed at this bed and breakfast. It was owned, this family since 1920 or something. And all of a sudden he said, who wants to come with me at, it was very company. I think that was just really special for us because it was a bit unexpected, and it wasn't something I think that people we know who've been to Australia, most of them haven't done it. And yeah, it was just fabulous. And it was so upsetting to us. We heard, with all the fires that you've had in the past year or so, I think there was a great deal on Kangaroo Island, and we were all just so saddened by that. Because it really was such a special place for us. I think we were only there, I think maybe 3 nights, but we really wished we'd had more time. But I think they call it, the Galapagos of Australia. We've also been to the Galapagos. We love, sort of wildlife type of things. So I think that was one of our most favorite things. And then of course, but all of it was wonderful. I loved seeing Sydney. And Sydney, it was interesting. It felt very comfortable to me. And, I think in many ways, Australia feels more British than American. But one thing that Australia shares with the United States that I hadn't really felt any other foreign country I'd visited was, to the degree to which it's a country of immigrants.
Yes.
And so that ended up feeling very familiar to me walking in Sydney. There were just aspects of it that felt like home in a lot of ways. And I was like, wow, I could live here. This is great. And then I think I also went to Brisbane and Melbourne. Those I went to without my family. And then also Perth for for the actual convention, that's where it was. And that to me, just, I have this thing about remote places. I just think it's kind of cool. Like I've always wanted to go to Madagascar. And so, you know, Perth, I think, is the most remote capitals, is because it's the capital of Western Australia, capital city in the world. And I was just like, man, this place is in the middle of nowhere and it's this whole city. And it was just, I loved like just being like, I'm in Perth. This is so cool. Like, who goes to Perth? This is, you know, it was fabulous. I loved I would love to come back. And because it's a big country. I mean, there's so much I haven't seen.
Well, we'd love to have you back as well. So I'm putting it out there to the universe. Let's get it together.
Okay.
I have a question from Helen Sibbert, who says that she has always loved Violet. And she's wondering if she was inspired by a particular person or how you came up with her as a character.
You know, the interesting thing about Violet, I think part of the reason she's such a favorite character for readers, in part because she's a favorite character of mine, and I think that shows through how much I love her. But part of the reason she became such a favorite character of mine is that she appears in a lot of books. So I have a chance to really develop her in a way that you don't even get to do with your main characters. And so even though she never had a book of her own where she stars in her own romance, you see her, much more of her, through a long period of time than any of the other characters. And if you look in The Duke and I, which is the first book that she appears in, she's actually not that well developed a character. She's a bit of a stereotypical Regency mama then. So I wouldn't say, you know, when people say, how did you develop her? I would say it was really over time. You know, she needed time to grow, and, you know, like with every book, I found new layers to her and new things. And so I think that's part of the reason we love her so much. And I think also that, you know, romance, just for a number of different reasons, is full of bad mothers, which is kind of too bad. But it makes sense in some ways because, you know, one way to make a really interesting character is to isolate them in some way. And one way to isolate someone emotionally is to have given them terrible parents, or to like given them no parents or something like that. And so that's often something that you do to create this, you know, very interesting character. And so, but, you know, when Violet, there were very few good mothers in romance. And so she was kind of actually unique in that way. And and, you know, I keep on my mind now, the woman who plays Violet is really wonderful. And I got to see, I think, only one scene that she was in being filmed. But she was with all four of the girls, and it was delightful. It was really.
Oh, that sounds just wonderful. Every time you mention the show, I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait to see it either. I haven't actually, so we'll tell everybody, because I don't know when this is airing, but it's June right now, and I actually haven't seen anything beyond what I saw, like with my eyes being filmed. They're working on the editing now, but I haven't seen any clips, so
okay.
We'll see.
I have a couple of questions from Anna Campbell, who's asked, what do you see as the current trends in historical romance?
I should say hi, Anna. She used to write for Avon. Current trends, I don't know. You know, I think what you're definitely going to see a bit more diversity and inclusion in the characters, which is way long overdue, which doesn't mean that I'm the right person to tell those stories. I'm probably not. But I've been really making an effort to promote and amplify those voices and those stories so that they can reach a wider audience. I don't know. What I'm really hoping is that the Netflix show will burst open some doors and get people in there. You know, all these people who loved Downton Abbey so much and didn't realize that they were kind of watching a historical romance. I mean, not exactly, because there's a lot of other things going on too, but like for all the people for whom like the romances part of that show were your favorite, and there are all these people who were like, you know, because it's on Masterpiece Theater in the United States, so it's, you know, very hoity-toity, whatever. And I'm like, people, you're watching historical romance. That's what you love. So I'm hoping that by reaching sort of a new audience, maybe we'll get new readers in, and that will sort of burst a few things open and see where it falls out. I don't know about trends. I mean, I don't think right now historical romance is still pretty well dominated by Regency historicals and Regency adjacent historicals, either Georgian and Victorian. And I don't necessarily see that changing anytime soon as much as I would like it to, even though that's what I write. I want there to be more variety, but I wish I knew.
I think the thing about the Regency is, even when you're not necessarily aware of it, there are so many sort of social issues that mirror our problems today still. So it's something that we identify with, maybe. And then, of course, there's all those pretty frocks. And, you know, if you're going to travel back in time, then you want a great dress. You don't want to.
This is true. And they do look, you know, there's still corsets and everything, but they look way more comfortable than some of the other dresses on either side of it. And a theory I have about why the Regency is so popular is that it is far enough back that it has a fairy tale aspect to it. So, you know, we can forgive certain behaviors that maybe wouldn't be appropriate now, but it's, you know, there's people can take poetic license. You've got a fair, you know, it's very romantic, and we can forget about the fact that probably half the people had syphilis and that sort of thing, because it's very romantic. But it's modern enough that people thought in ways, their thought processes were similar to ours. Like if you go back to medieval times, there's just a huge level of mysticism and religiosity that had dissipated by the Regency. And so, so it's kind of this nice little in-between place where we can, you know, be fairy tale, but modern thought in some ways, and still have enough of you've got enough of a societal difference that there are all sorts of plot devices and twists you can use that wouldn't work in a contemporary, because, you know, you can't suddenly tell two people they have to get married because they were alone in a room together now. That, you know, that's just not going to fly.
Very true. Another question from Karen about the Bridgerton TV series. What do you think it was about your beloved stories that made them particularly suitable for adaptation as a TV series?
You know, that I'm not positive, but I did read Shonda's, she wrote a wonderful memoir called The Year of Yes. And the idea was that came from her deciding to have a year where she was going to say yes to everything. And but I have to tell people that includes learning how to say no, like to things that are not healthy, because like often people will ask us to do things and we say yes, even though we shouldn't. And so that part of Year of Yes is learning to say yes to saying no to something. Anyway, and it came about because she was asked by her alma mater, which is Dartmouth College here in the States, to deliver their commencement address. And she told her sister about it. This is all in the beginning of the book. And her sister said, "You never say yes to anything." She was like, "What? What?" And she realized that, so this was her learning how to conquer her fears. But as I was reading this memoir, there were all sorts of scenes or just memories of her with her family. She's got a big family, many brothers and sisters. And she was talking about some of their competitive aspects. And all of a sudden I was like, I see why she liked the Bridgertons. You know, I was just like, I can see this now. You know, why is it, you know, why is that one maybe more suitable? I don't know. I think maybe because I tend to write very dialogue heavy, which like just seems more script like, although, I mean, and I have read all the scripts, they're not remotely word for word adaptations. I don't want people to, I don't think people should get their hopes up that it would be a word for word adaptation, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. Yeah, I think, you know, when you have something with that level of dialogue, I think it's easier to imagine it as a film than perhaps something that has a lot more internal monologues and description and that sort of thing.
Then a question from Penelope Janu, who met you last time you were in Australia, and said she's sure you won't remember, but she says hi anyway. And she asks if you get support from your friends and family who don't read romance. And what does your husband feel about, does he read your books?
So he doesn't really read the books, but, you know, in his defense, he doesn't read a whole lot of anything beyond medical journals and mountaineering stuff, because he's a mountain climber. but no, they're all very, very supportive. My family's all fabulous. Yeah, they think it's great. And, you know, I have lots of friends who don't necessarily read romance, but they all think it's really cool too. I can't remember the last time I got, you know, any type of snide comment about it. I mean, occasionally I'll hear people talk about, you know, those trashy books, but usually they're people who read romances, and, you know, they say that with affection, and I'll be like, you know, I'm not sure I like that description that much. It's like, no, I mean it as a compliment. I love it. You know, and it's sort of like, well, just, you know, so no, I get nothing but support and love for it. So that's really nice. And everybody in my life is just so excited about, you know, just when I was finally able to tell everybody about the TV series. 'Cause I told you earlier, I had to keep it a secret forever. Just the outpouring of love and excitement has been really wonderful. It just sort of reminds you, just, you know, I have in my life who actually care about me and are excited. And it was just nice. You know, I think one of them just said, I love when good things happen to good people. And I was just like, well, I'm good people. Yay.
Yeah, that is lovely. Now, some final questions. Now, so I know you attended Yale School of Medicine briefly before deciding to pursue a full-time writing career. So what are the advantages of being a romance writer rather than a doctor?
Well, I'm my husband's doctor, so I have a front row seat. Gosh, the advantages are legion. I mean, I'm here talking to you. I'm not in the hospital right now. The biggest thing really is just, it really depends on you. One of the things I had difficulty with in medicine was this overwhelming feeling that no matter what you do, you're just not caught up. Like, and with writing, I mean, I'm behind all the time, but eventually I turn my book in and I'm caught up, you know, at least, like, you know, once a year, I'm like, I'm here, I'm caught up, you know, whereas he just is. I think with medicine, you never feel that way. And now, you know, that it was years ago that I left medical school. And since then I've raised a family. I mean, my kids aren't fully grown yet, but they're older, and I have been able to be a really available parent, job. It's been good, you know, that I've been very successful. So, you know, I've always made more nice. But just the and you
I'm
frozen.
Yeah, oh no, you're back. You're back. So okay, so oh, and then I wanted to ask you about a couple of experiences you've had that sound like really fun. So
Okay.
on your website, it says that you were a contestant on the Weakest Link game show and you won $79,000.
I did. It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, and I had to keep that a secret too. So I had practiced keeping this really big secret, because you sign a contract before you go on saying that you won't tell them the results of the show, you won't make it public, and if you do, you forfeit any winnings you might have, and you might have to pay them $1 million.
Okay.
Which, I don't have $1 million to pay them. So, like, you know, so you have to sign this. So I won, but I told my husband that was it. I couldn't tell anyone and so it was supposed to air. I think I filmed it in September, and it was supposed to air in October. And then we got bumped for like some National Geographic special, Super Croc, I don't know. And then the US invaded Afghanistan. And so we got bumped for that. And then they started doing all the celebrity shows. And so it never came on. And the other thing is, you don't get paid. You don't get your winnings till the show airs. So I'm waiting for the money, and I need the money, and waiting for it, and I can't tell anyone. And then all of a sudden I get 4 emails from people saying like, oh my gosh, I saw this, you won, that's so great. I'm like, what? It didn't air. And I realized they were all in the UK. It aired on BBC.
Oh, okay.
And so I notified the TV station here, NBC, and I said, look, you know, just so you know, this aired in a foreign country, and I mean, I'm not like super famous, but like I have some presence, and these people are saying things about how I won, and I need you to know that I'm not the one who said this. I can't be, please don't hold me liable. And I was just trying to make sure I didn't have to pay them $1 million. But what it actually did was I didn't realize that because it aired, they're like, okay, we'll start the paperwork to pay you. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. They're like, but please don't tell anybody, you know, in the United States. So I still had to keep it a secret. And then it never ended up actually airing on network TV. It just went into automatic, like, on the Game Show Network. And so even now, like, it still pops up every now and then on the Game Show Network, me on The Weakest Link in 2001. Looking a lot thinner, but yeah.
That is in some ways such a typical TV story about how something can be bumped by, you know, world events or national events, and then
or the super crocodile, yeah,
or the super croc, and just that's it. It just never comes back. What made you decide to give it a go?
So I had been living, earlier that year, I'd been living in the UK for about 3 months while my husband was studying at the London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. And the show was hugely popular there. It hadn't come to other nations yet. And I loved it. And so then we were living in Denver, Colorado at the time. And all of a sudden, you know, I hear something on the radio about tryouts for the show called The Weakest Link. And I was like, what? I have to try out, you know, because nobody else had ever heard of it. A lot of people went and tried out though, but you know, I remember just telling my family, like, you guys, I'm going, we're doing this. And then it worked.
Oh,
I was so excited.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And then another exciting thing you've done is you have appeared in an MTV music video. Tell us about that.
So I mean, an MTV music video. I mean, we only call it that because it's been on MTV. It's so here in Seattle. Well, let me back up. The director who's done a bunch of book trailers for HarperCollins happens to live in Seattle, where I live. I'm still not sure how they ended up hiring him, but he was their regular guy. And he's also a musician, and he needed extras in his video. And so I guess he was just, I've been in touch with him a little bit. We're friends, but somehow the contact at HarperCollins found out, and she's like, you should call Julia. See, and so I just went in it, and I got to be in the music video, and it was, you know, wild. It's just funny. Basically, you know, it's really weird. It's very well done. It was funny. Like, I'm basically running along carrying like a shower head and like trying. It's
and for anyone who'd like to look it up and see your starring role, what is the name of the song?
The name of the song is Belle of the Ball, and the group is Ephrata, EPHR. Linked on my website.
Okay.
What page it's actually on, I'm not positive, but it's there somewhere. It's probably, if you go to like about the author, there's probably a link to something there, either that, yeah, somewhere in there, I think it is. If not, we should get it in there somewhere. About the author, or go to like Media Kit or something, but where there's fast facts, but it's there somewhere. You can also just search, I think there's a search bar on the website, and look up like music video, and you'll find it.
Okay, great. I think that's a wrap, actually. We've covered all our questions, so if I could ask you to hold up your treasure hunt code for anyone who's watching.
Okay, hold on, let me get it. Okay, well, I gotta try to center it here a little bit. All right, sorry, there we go.
Perfect.
Am I good?
You're good. And it's the right way around and everything, so thank you very much.
It looks backwards for me, but if it works for you guys.
And it's probably, I don't know, something about your camera reflecting back at you and reflecting out at us, or something like that. But thank you once again, Julia. It's been great fun chatting to you, and we hope that one day when things go back to normal, or to the new normal, or wherever we end up, we can see you and your family in Australia again.
Oh, believe me, I'll get there sometime. I would